There we go. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Now, I know what you're thinking. We are in a heat wave in the middle of July. Why have we got a nativity Christmas scene in front of us? Firstly, it was my daughter's birthday at the end of June, so now her birthday's out the way. It's Christmas is the next one for presents, so she's starting to make a list. So Christmas has already been spoken about in our family, and it'll only be a couple of weeks until the first Christmas song is played by my wife, probably. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. So the other reason why I've put this up here is to highlight what I think is a fairly obvious issue with the talk title that I'm here to discuss with you, because we are told for seemingly 6 months in the build up to Christmas each year, the nativity story. And one of the most remarkable things about that is the virgin birth, isn't it? No man involved. So the remarkable thing about Jesus is that he is the only person born who isn't the son of a man. So does that mean that there's actually not really much to say? You know, you've come to listen to a Bible talk. We're going to finish in a little under 2 minutes. Thanks very much. Well, not quite, because the title isn't Son of Man. It is Son of Man, as in mankind. Jesus was born from Mary, and so as a result had her DNA and is human. Indeed, we've got two genealogies of Jesus recorded in the Bible to show Jesus's ancestors from Mary and also to show the line from Joseph. Now, you might not be able to make out those faces. I can't guarantee that they are the actual likenesses of those people if you're looking at them, but those are the two genealogies that we get from the line of Mary and from the line of Joseph. And one of the main reasons that we're given those genealogies in the Bible is to show that Jesus was of the line of the old Jewish high priests and also of the line of the Jewish kings as well. And that meant that he could rightfully assume the crown as king of the Jews, but also he had a legitimate claim to be the next high priest according to the rules set out in the Old Testament, as opposed to the time in the rules in Jesus's time, when it was sort of the person who had the most money could be high priest for a year regardless of lineage. The other important reason why we get these genealogies are recorded for us is to show us categorically that Jesus was a man. He was born of woman. He was as much a human being as you and me. Now, Jesus was also born from God and is rightly called the Son of God in our Bibles. And you might be thinking, well, surely that is a more important title of Jesus, Son of God, like Thor, almighty and all powerful. That's a better title, isn't it? That's the one I would be using. So if someone said to me, would you rather be the son or the child of man or the son of child of God? I think I'd be going down the Son of God. However, Jesus calls himself Son of Man regularly in the first four books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those record Jesus' time on this earth. So it was a title that he wanted to be known by. And for us, I think Son of Man as a name for Jesus is actually just as important as Son of God, both for now and in the future, which is why we're talking about it. And so what I want to do in our time together is to just consider a few aspects of who Jesus was as the Son of Man and the implications that means for us. And so firstly, I want to consider why this title was used. What is the significance of the title to Jesus, to those he spoke to, as well as you and me now? Then I want to examine what the title actually means, because titles usually signify things, don't they? King or queen of denotes someone who's a ruler over a certain space of land or certain peoples. In football, a manager or a head coach. In football, they apparently have different meanings. I'm not entirely sure what they are, but they do. And we also get things like master or mister to denote a boy or a man's age. And just as a very quick aside, do you know what age it is appropriate for a man to be called Mister on a letter if you're writing a letter? Anyone want to hazard a guess? 18? Correct. Yeah. So what about when it's appropriate to stop calling a boy master on a letter? It's 12. Oh, Esquire, yeah. So it's 8, actually. So apparently for 10 years, it's fine for boys to have no title at all, which I didn't know until I was doing this talk. And, if you don't take anything else away with you, then that's a little tidbit of information for you. Anyway, so titles, they usually tell us something about the person, don't they? So what does the title Son of Man tell us about Jesus? And then thirdly, I want to think about what that means in the future for us. The so what question. What's the point of you sitting here in this hot weather, listening to me talk if there's nothing to take away from it? So then, why did Jesus call himself Son of Man? In those first 4 books of the New Testament, Jesus is recorded as calling himself Son of Man on over 40 separate occasions. And so why is that? What is it about the name that Jesus was so keen on? Perhaps it links back to a term in the Old Testament. Well, while never given this title, the first Son of Man, we're told, was a man named Cain. So perhaps this is who Jesus wanted to think of when calling himself Son of Man. Well, let's just look at the account of Cain and just see whether there's any lessons for us there. I'm going to put all the references up on the screen behind me. If you want to turn them up, that's absolutely fine as well. But Genesis chapter 4, and in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain, can't read my writing because I've got this Zoom screen on there. Came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the first fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. So we're told there that Abel brought the best of what he had to present to God as an offering to show God how much he meant to Abel. Cain, meanwhile, the inference there is he brought some stuff, brought some fruit. He just picked some stuff, probably didn't check if it was any good, whether it was bad, whether it was moldy, and he presented that. He just sort of went, I've got to do something. So here you go. He did the bare minimum, which, if you ask my wife, shows one of my worst qualities, which I frequently demonstrate, which is laziness. So if we keep going in the account, and the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry and his countenance fell. So even though Cain hadn't really bothered, when he realized that his brother had done a better job, Cain was suddenly bothered and he got jealous and he got angry. And then verse 8. Now Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Now, I'm going to say that the conversation at the start of that verse led to Cain being jealous and angry again, which resulted in him killing his brother. And so we see that the first Son of Man was lazy, was angry, was jealous, and was violent. And if we look at the world around us, we click on the news, I'm sure 1 or 2 articles in, we would see the result of one of those characteristics still shown in the world today. I'm also pretty sure if you took 30 seconds, you could think of a time in your own life when you showed each of these tendencies, quite possibly just looking at the past week. So is this the man that Jesus is trying to draw comparisons with? While I don't think Jesus uses this title to encourage people to think of just Cain, Jesus does use this title to help us think of Jesus in a certain way. The term Son of Man emphasizes Jesus' humanity. It reminds us that Jesus was fully human. He experienced all the things that we do, things like hunger. Matthew 4, when Jesus had fasted 40 days and 40 nights afterwards, he was hungry. Tiredness and thirst. John 4, now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. We have anger as well. When Jesus had looked around them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. We see sorrow as well in the shortest verse in our Bibles, in John 11, verse 35, where we read Jesus wept. And then we know Jesus suffered pain and even death. Luke 23, when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. And so this connection to our humanity is important because it means that Jesus understands us deeply. He knows what it's like to walk in our shoes. He knows what it's like to have all those emotions that Cain experienced running through his body. He knows the strength it takes sometimes to say no and to resist. And he understands why we struggle sometimes to listen to what God has asked of us to do. And this empathy to our position gives Jesus great power, and it's a huge help to us as well, which we'll look at shortly. Now, although Jesus is known as the Son of Man, he isn't the only person called this in our Bibles. Not only that, Jesus isn't called Son of Man the most in our Bibles. The term Son of Man occurs most in the book of Ezekiel, where God calls Ezekiel Son of Man 93 times. So does this mean that we should be looking closely at the example of Ezekiel as a type of Christ in this context? In short, no. Son of Man was used on occasion by God to highlight the humanity of someone, the difference between them and the majesty and power of God. And so while Ezekiel is often called Son of Man, that's more of a generic title to mean a man. Meanwhile, Jesus is the only person to call himself the Son of Man. And it's a small word, but it's such an important distinction, the use of the word the. While Ezekiel was a generic son of mankind, a child of mankind, as we all are, Jesus was the Son of Man, hinting at a prophecy that we're going to look at shortly, but highlighting very specifically that there was something special about Jesus. Now, the phrase Son of Man does have other roots in the Old Testament, not just in Ezekiel. And the reference that I'm thinking of is in Daniel chapter 7. And Daniel 7, it's a prophetic vision given to Daniel during the reign of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. And the vision is a sort of a pivotal moment in the book of Daniel. It transitions from documenting historical events to then looking more at prophecy and looking to the future hope of Israel being restored and also beyond. And then in this vision, in Daniel 7, Daniel sees 4 great beasts rising from the sea, each representing different kingdoms that will dominate the earth. And these beasts are symbolic of successive empires, which most scholars identify as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And the vision illustrates the violent and ever-changing nature of human kingdoms and their eventual judgment. So let's just take a look at Daniel 7 and looking at verse 13. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which will not be destroyed. So a vision is described where one like the Son of Man comes with the clouds of heaven, and he's given authority, glory, and sovereign power. And this figure is also given an everlasting kingdom. And so by using this title, Jesus is connecting himself to this certain prediction for the future, indicating that he is the one who will fulfill it, which again is a bit of a spoiler for what we're going to talk about. When Jesus calls himself Son of Man to those around him in the gospel records, he's asking them to think back to where this phrase was used in the Old Testament, to think about what was actually said and what was promised. And he's also plainly telling them and us that he is, in many ways, as I've said, just a man born with the same lusts, desires, emotions, and temptations as we have. And the fact that he never once gave in to those temptations just shows how strong a person Jesus was. And it is that strength that allowed him to fulfill his mission given by God. So what mission was that? What mission was given by God? What is the obligation, you like, of this title? What did Jesus have to do to earn this title? Well, we've already seen Jesus' lineage from both Mary and Joseph, and your ancestry was much more important in previous generations than it is now. It's not just for who do you think you are show, or if you like ancestry.com or you want to build a little flag to yourself or something like that. It's much more important back in history. To be able to prove your ancestry might mean that you had a claim to a throne or to a noble house. Back in Roman times, being able to show your ancestry might mean that you could show you were a Roman citizen or a freedman rather than a slave. However, for much of mankind's history, and still today in many countries, sadly, ancestry is important to those who are chasing debts. As Jesus was born, when the Roman Empire was in charge, we'll use them as an example. So in Roman times, if you owed money to someone and then you died, leaving the sum owing, they were then able to extract payment from your spouse or from your family and or your children. And so depending on the sum involved, this could mean you had to sell people into slavery in order to cover the bills. And while this practice is no longer legal in the UK, a form of this is still around today in what is called debt bondage, which is called by the UN as modern day slavery. Now, in Jesus' time, if you were identified as the son or the child of someone, then you could be liable to pay their debts if they borrowed more than they could afford. And Jesus, as we've seen, frequently calls himself the Son of Man. He confessed that he was happy to accept the debt of mankind, whatever that may be. So then, what is the debt? What is the wage of mankind, if you like? When we thought of Cain, I said we could all think of times that we felt like him, didn't I? So jealousy, lazy, angry. And we've all acted on those emotions and done something that we've regretted after. And we're told in many passages in the Bible that that is falling short of God's expectation, also known as sin. And so in Romans chapter 6, verse 23, we read, "For the wages of sin is death." So that's the debt. That's our debt for sin, what we owe for all those times that we fall short of God's expectation. And it's death, permanent, with no hope of life. And it's a price that we cannot pay ourselves. The cost is too high. And so our burden is passed down to the Son of Man. If we continue reading that verse, the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus, our Lord. The man Jesus, who, as soon as he started preaching, he told people, "I am the Son of Man. I am here to take away those sins and failings. I will pay for them myself if you will acknowledge me as part of your family." And to me, that is the most amazing gift that I can think of. That is the most precious gift that we can be given. And it is something that we should treasure. It is something I think we should find joy in and find comfort in and find encouragement in. And on its own, I think that's such a powerful message to all of us as to what the Son of Man is and what Jesus' role as the Son of Man is for us. But that isn't the end of what this title means. Despite how amazing I think that is, there is even more for us. Because when you talk about being the son of someone, you're really looking at the future, aren't you? You're talking about the future. You're looking at the next generation down. You're looking into the future. You're pointing towards the future. Jesus came to show the people of Israel and us what our future with God could and will look like in a variety of ways. One aspect was that Jesus came to teach people about God's love and how to live in a way that pleases him. And he did that in two key ways. That is the words that he said and the things that he did. And that's also how we show God's love in our lives, isn't it? By what we say and what we do. Now, there are dozens of examples of both words and deeds of Jesus, but I just want to look at one of each as a demonstration. And so first of all, we're going to look at Luke chapter 9, and just a little bit of context before we get there. Jesus was preaching just before his death, but the village that he went to visit and was doing the preaching to, they weren't interested at all. And two of his followers, who were brothers, James and John, the John who we think wrote John's Gospel, wanted to punish the village for the way they responded to Jesus. So Luke chapter 9. And when Jesus' disciples, James and John, saw this, that's the response of the village, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did?" But he turned and rebuked them and said, You do not know what manner of spirit you are of. For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them." And they went to another village. So Jesus shows that neither he nor God want to destroy people. God did not create the earth just to watch it burn. He didn't create it to leave those living on it in darkness. Jesus and God, they want a world full of people, but we need help in order to do this, which is where Jesus comes in as the Son of Man to be an example for us. And then Matthew chapter 9, and again, just a little bit of context. We've got a paralytic man who's let down through the roof by his friends so he can see Jesus, because they knew that Jesus had the power to heal him. However, there were those in the crowd who just didn't believe in Jesus. So Matthew chapter 9. But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, that the people who didn't believe in Jesus, said, "Why do you think evil in your hearts? For which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven you,' or to say, 'Arise and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins." Then he said to the paralytic, "Arise, take up your bed, and go to your house." And he arose and departed to his house. So Jesus showed that the Son of Man has power to save individuals then. He also has the power to save the whole world now. Lastly, in my talk, Jesus as the Son of Man also points to his return. He promised that one day he would come back to establish God's kingdom fully on earth. Later on in Matthew's book, Matthew 24, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." So the Son of Man will return to this earth with power and with great glory. And his purpose is to set up a kingdom that we saw in the words from the book of Daniel earlier, which will never end. And this isn't just like an everlasting version of the Roman or the British Empire either. Firstly, this will cover the whole earth. And secondly, we're told in a few places what this earth will be like. So Isaiah chapter 35, we read, "Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb sing. For waters shall burst forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water." So there will be healing all over the earth. There'll be no more diseases, no more drought. Plenty for all. Isaiah chapter 2. "Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many people shall come and say, 'Come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." So there's going to be a time of perfect justice with a perfect judge. There's going to be a time of no more war, no more conflict. Again, looking at the news, 1-2 articles in, there will be something about conflict, something about war going on in this earth, and it never seems to end. But it will end when Jesus returns to this earth. And then lastly, Revelation chapter 21. "Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, 'Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away.'" It's going to be a time of no more sorrow, no more pain, no more death. And surely this gives us hope that we know no matter what difficulties we face, Jesus, the Son of Man, will return to make everything right. And so the title Son of Man tells us so much about Jesus. It reminds us that he was truly human, experiencing life just as we do. It connects him to the ancient prophecies, showing that he was the one chosen by God to bring about God's kingdom. It highlights his mission to teach, to heal, and ultimately sacrifice himself for us. And it gives us hope for the future when he will return to establish God's perfect kingdom. This is a wonderful message that is timeless as it is relevant. Jesus, the Son of Man, is someone who understands us, who loves us, and offers us a way to be close to God. He calls us to follow him, to learn from his example, and to live in a way that honors God. And so let us remember this as we go about our lives, striving to live with the same love and the same compassion that Jesus showed.